Welcome to another edition of Octagons, Circles, and Squares, an NBC Sports podcast covering the cage, the mat, and the ring. I'm your host, Steven D'Agostino, and today we are previewing UFC 318, the much-anticipated final bout for Dustin Poirier as he faces off against Max Holloway in New Orleans. What better way to preview it than to welcome on one of the names in that main event, the man trying to play spoiler. Joined now by the BMF title holder, former 145-pound stalwart, now 155-pound stalwart. Max, welcome to the show, and also welcome to your new home at 155. The weight cut must feel much better this time around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, having the 10 extra pounds, fight camp feels way better. I mean, we're 1 week, 1.5 weeks out of fight week. Feels much better. So, life's good, definitely, at 155 pounds.
Yeah, I want to hit on that. So at this point, typically when you were at 45 cutting weight and you're about a week out, what were you at? Where were you at physically during that time? And then also now, how does that compare to right now, this version at 55, preparing for your fight?
I mean, just, physically, I was 10 pounds lighter. So maybe less, or even if I wasn't, I was looking at stuff that I wanted to eat and be like, man, I probably shouldn't eat that, or if I had to, I'd have to go for a workout. So we're definitely in a good place, man. Mental, physically, it's a lot better. It's a lot funner at 55. So I'm just happy to be here.
Less saunas and sauna suits, I'm sure, at 55, which is always a party.
Yeah.
So big fight with Dustin coming up here. You guys have had some wars. All of your fights are wars. All of Dustin's fights are wars. However, this is it for Dustin. This is his swan song. Given that point, are you expecting more of like a risk-taking type of Dustin where he's willing to let it all fly? And if so, how are you preparing for that kind of back against the wall mentality from Dustin for this fight?
I mean, his hometown, his last dance. You know what you get when you tune into a Dustin Poirier fight. So, I'm getting ready for a Dustin Poirier fight times 10, or times 20. This is his last dance. If you saw the promo, he's saying he's gonna go out there, give it his all, like he always does. But we are in his hometown. This is his last fight, so I'm expecting a very dangerous, a very aggressive, and a very fun fight. Come Saturday night, July 19. I just, I can't wait for it.
I feel like the odds for a point down happening at some point in this fight have to be like minus 500. Do you think those odds are pretty accurate? And do you think that could happen from either you or him at some point in this fight?
For sure, 100%. Dustin Poirier is a point down guy, and that's why his last fight. I mean, if I think those odds is too generous. It should be like minus a million or something, because I think it's coming. I think it's happening. I think if this fight somehow does get to the fifth round with 10 seconds left, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one doing it. He's the one starting and pointing down, and then it's going to be a fun one.
You mentioned you're going into kind of enemy territory here on his own home turf. And you're not new to that. When you won your belt against Aldo, you were in Brazil. I'm sure you've had these situations before. Like, psychologically, what is it like stepping into an octagon or an arena that, everyone's cheering against you, and how do you overcome that?
I mean, it is what it is. It's a fight game. I don't know. I don't pay too much mind to it. And, I mean, it sucks, It sucks when you think about it, but I don't think about it. At the end of the day, it is what it is. If the shoe was on the other foot, was in Hawaii, my last dance, even though Dustin's a likable guy, I hope my people, my fans, would boo the shit out of him coming out. So that's what I'm looking forward to. You got to respect the man. The guy's a legend, future Hall of Famer for sure. So at the end of the day, I'm just stoked, man. I'm not really thinking about it. The only thing that's on my mind is not going 1-3 in trilogies, for a second time. So we're gonna go out there and get my hand raised.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. You mentioned trilogies there. Your first fight with Dustin, it was your debut, and that was over 10 years ago, and it feels like yesterday. It's insane. What have you learned since that first fight in 13 years ago, stepping into the octagon, and what lessons have you learned that have brought you here to this moment in this version of Max Holloway?
I learned a lot, man. I learned a lot. I pretty much grown up in front of a lot of people's eyes. That's why a lot of these fans think I'm older than what I am. I got into the UFC when I was 20. I made my debut against Dustin. I get to beat Dustin's retirement fight, which is pretty cool. I think we have the longest ever running trilogy there is, or not trilogy, but what the hell is the word? I'm brain farting right now, but the
It is
longest
trilogy.
reigning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Longest running one.
So it's it's crazy, bro, to think that me and him. I made my debut against him. He had a couple fights in the UFC, and like you said, 12 years. I mean, 13 years in, bro, and we're still some of the best fighters in the world. You know what I mean? Like top five in the division, in a higher division than when we first met. It's unreal, man. It's unreal. I mean, it's crazy that we're here, and it's crazy that I get to shut off guy with him for his last time. He was my debut. I get to be his last dance. What a road we're on.
Did you like the fact that, you have a lot of big plans after this, you're not done but just being the fact that you're in this fight with a competitor you've known for over a decade and seeing that, that he's hanging it up after this, does it make you kind of sentimental and think about your own career? And if so, like how many more years do we have of seeing Max Holloway lace it up in there?
I mean, I don't really think about it too much. The only thing I say all the time, even with my age coming up there, getting up there, I'm just like, as long as I'm competing with the elites and I'm stood at that level where, I can get to an undisputed title, I'll keep doing it. But until when that time comes, then, I'm over it, So it's just crazy to think, that, like a guy like Dustin Poirier, a guy that I watched from the WEC to now, and he's hanging it up. Aldo hanging it up. A lot of guys is retiring. It's kind of crazy. You're just watching these guys that you grew up watching. Now they're hanging up the gloves is pretty insane.
Whenever it does happen though, it's got to be in Hawaii, right? I feel like that's got to go without saying. The Max Holloway send off has to be in Hawaii.
I hope so, man. I hope so. If not Hawaii, at least close to Hawaii, at least the ninth island. They call Las Vegas the ninth island. So if we can't get Hawaii, why not? Why not the ninth island? That'd be pretty sick.
Speaking of still hunting titles here, I know you've got your eyes set on 155. I did want to just confirm though. So no matter what, at 145, that chapter's closed, huh? Even if it was a fresh face like Diego Lopez or Mosa or someone new, you would never be interested in taking a crack back at 145.
Yeah, no, I have no idea why I'm still ranked at 45. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, I'm over that. Take my damn name out the list, get somebody else in the top 15. But take my name off, they're gonna add another one in the 15, and it's just new faces, man. They need new life down there, and they have new life. There's some great guys coming up, so it's exciting to see. But my time at that weight class is as far is just over.
With that said, sights set on 55 and a name you're familiar with now coming off a huge win there in Tapuria. How do you think you guys stack up now with a few extra pounds on you and a little bit less weight to cut? Do you think, how does that fight play out differently for you if you were to get the rematch with Tapuria for the belt here?
I mean, like I said the first time, we just got to find out Saturday night, right? I can't wait. First things first is Dustin Poirier, but with that undisputed title fight being announced the month before me and Poirier, or even a couple weeks before me and Poirier I was ecstatic. I have a history with both guys, with him and Charles, so I was super stoked. I just got to go out there. I got to do my job. I got to get my hand raised, and mixed martial arts is all about moments. If I can have a moment there come July 19th, stake my claim to fight for a title. Maybe we fight for a title at the end of the year or early next year. And like I said, I have history with the guy, so it'd be super fun.
Last question here. You get your hand raised at 318. Are your call out post fight? Is it right to the top of the belt, or are there any other names that you would like to also check off at this weight class?
I mean, people just gonna wait and see. It depends on type of performance I do. If I go out there and I do the performance I'm gonna do, you guys gonna see who gets a calling out to.
Max Holloway, BMF champ, rock star, stud. Can't wait to watch it, man. Thank you. We'll be watching and cheering for you. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you. Have a good one.
We can't talk UFC 318 without giving you some bets. And to do that, we bring on our betting expert, Brad Thomas. Brad, how are you doing, my friend? I know you're still riding high off being in Vegas for Fight Week, and now you're right back in the mix, giving us some analysis for this New Orleans card. What do you like further down on the card for us here first?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Pitbull Ige fight. And, naturally as a fan favorite, I'd be like so stoked to bet Ige, right? He's a guy who fills in whenever, a guy who's actually getting a full camp, back-to-back full camps to fight this. But the price was like minus 110 for him to win. And now it's ballooned all the way to minus 165, minus 170. I think it's a bit ridiculous. He looked really good against Woodson, right? Like, I'm not going to take anything away from him. But we have to remember, in that fight against Woodson, he was like a plus 165 underdog. That was coming off back-to-back losses. And then on the other side of the cage, you have Pitbull, who fought like probably the best Yair Rodriguez we've seen since he's been in the Octagon. It was a fight that basically had no opportunity for Pitbull to really even land any strikes. I think he connected on something like 20 or less significant strikes in that fight. Dan Ige, in an interview, has said it himself. He knows he's going to get Pitbull's chance. This is Pitbull's second fight in the UFC. Now it's against a guy who I think he matches up much better with, and the price is just way too large on Ige as the favorite. So I'm going to take Pitbull on the money line. You can find at a lot of shops around plus 145. But if you're patient and you really don't think there's going to be a lot of buyback, I would wait up until fight night, because the money is just flying in on Ige, and I just think that's just incorrect.
I think a lot of people are probably buying in on the legend of Dan Ige, who's riding off of that Sphere performance against Lopez when he rolled off the couch. And it was very heroic and really made a name for himself there. But to your point, I mean, Pitbull, Octagon jitters are a real thing. And that Yair fight was his first fight in the UFC. So there's going to be a return to the mean at some point. And I think I like it here, what you're saying against Dan Ige. A little further up the card, we got someone that's a little surprising to see it as a co-main event in Paulo Costa. We were talking before we started taping that someone's going to end up on the canvas one way or another in a Costa fight, it feels like. So are you taking him, or are you going in the other direction with Paulo?
No, I'm going with Roman Kopylov, and he's minus 270, right? So first, let me just talk about this fight for a second. Paulo Costa comes in here, and the only reason, in my opinion, that Dana White even puts him on this card is because he knows, despite him not having a good record in his last 5 fights, only 1 win in those 5, he knows that he's going to stand there and bang. There's just something about Kopylov, is fighting tenacity, right? I wouldn't say he's the most polished striker, only landing about 50% of his strikes, significant strikes, but he's just one who's going to be willing to just stand in there and just try to demolish you. And I think Paulo Costa, after this gets past the first round and get deeper into the second and later rounds, it's going to wear on him. And I think Kopylov takes his head off, right? He's coming off a really big knockout of Curtis. I think he does the same thing to Costa, but I just can't take the money line straight, right? Like, that just doesn't make sense, because there's the real possibility that one of these dudes gets their taking a head off, and it could be either. I'm going to parlay it. I'm going to parlay it with another fight that there's no way that it can go the distance. I'm going to take the fight to inside the distance in the Poirier and Max Holloway fight, because those two dudes on Dustin's last fight, they're going to say, let's meet at the middle. Let's slug this thing out. This is a bad, we'll be publicly correct, the BMF fight, right? 2 dudes who just want to show who's the baddest on the planet. No way that fight goes the distance.
Yeah, going back to Costa, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. So again, shocking to see him on this. I love a good main card parlay. I actually lose most of my money on those, so I'll probably tell you on that. This main event though is a lot of fun. And I spoke to Max earlier, and he said that it's very, very definite that someone is pointing down on the canvas at some point to stand and trade. Surprisingly, these guys, this is the 3rd time these guys have fought, and neither one ended in a knockout. Yeah. The first fight way back in 2012, I believe, was Max's first fight as a 20-year-old, where he was submitted, and then of course the sequel was awesome, probably fight of the year candidate at that time. Do you like anyone straight up here, or are you just sticking it with the parlay there for this main event?
I'm actually leaning Max Holloway here. even though Poirier looks like he's put on a little bit of a little beef, right? He made the whole comments about when he's done fighting, he might shoot it up a little, get on the juice, and just get absolutely stacked. Listen, and it's his last fight. I don't know what he's been doing behind closed doors, so he could come out as an animal, but it's just fighting with so much emotion. There's going to be the emotion of everything that he's doing for the very last time, right? And that starts all the way with the last day before weigh-ins, right? This last weigh-in, his last ceremonial weigh-in, the last time he's in the dressing room warming up, the last time they're putting that tape around his fingers for a full fight, that last time he's walking out to the cage, last time he's kissing his loved ones before he steps into the cage. All of that emotion can just trigger really, really immense amount of pressure. And Max Holloway has looked sharp, right? Looks sharp in his last 4 fights outside of the Ilia Topuria fight. I think Holloway wins this, and I think Holloway's going to do it justice and make this an absolute war.
Yeah, I mean, Holloway has a lot to fight for here, and I know that he wants Topuria, but even besides that, Charles Oliveira is calling him out. There's a lot of intriguing matchups at 155 for Max. So Max has to play this smart. He's got to go in. He can't be emotional, like you're saying. Poirier, on the other hand, I know that he wants to win, but I think knowing the kind of fighter he is, if he goes off on his shield, I think he's also pretty content with that. But either way, I know he's leaving it all out there. So it'll be a really fun fight. We cannot wait. And thanks, Brad, for your bets as always. Hopefully he'll bring some home for you there next weekend. That'll do it for us here at Octagon Circles and Squares. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned here for the latest news and analysis on combat sports. Until then, we'll see you next time.